Hi, everybody. I'm Stephen W. Long, and this is The Writing Life. And I'm really so pleased today to have one of my favorite guests, kind of you are, Courtney Terry, is the reference supervisor at Mac Public Library. And she's going to kind of bring us up to speed on what's going on there.
Yes.
So, hi, Courtney.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
November,
Yeah.
National Novel Writing Month.
Okay.
Or as the kids say, NaNoWriMo.
Right.
It's not just the kids, everybody.
Right.
Everybody calls it.
You're not a kid, and you said it. So.
Yep,
Okay.
NaNoWriMo.
All right.
And it's basically, and it's been happening for I don't know how many years, but quite some time. And it's basically the idea of you set this goal for yourself to write a novel or 10,000 words within the month of November.
Right.
And from that idea, there has been just all these different communities. There's an organization. They provide support groups. You can go on like the NaNoWriMo website and you can find like who in Yamhill County is active.
Okay.
And it's a cool way just for, if you're doing NaNoWriMo, a way to find others who are also trying to write their novel and you know, hang out, get together and talk.
Now, I don't know if you know this. I mean, I don't know it either. Are there like progress steps? After the first week, you turn your stuff in, or you say, I don't know. How does that work?
Yeah, well, it's mostly just self-propelled, self-motivated.
Okay.
They do, and a lot of programs, different NaNoWriMo programs will come out with a specific word count.
Okay.
And so it all kind of comes down to this word count, and by looking at how many pages you're writing, most people try and write a day, because it would, you know, they try and write at least every day or multiple times. Like, it's just the idea that for anyone that has ever, see, it says it right there.
Yeah, all right.
There we go.
All right.
60,000 words.
60, that's better. Yeah, 10.
There we go.
Not a big novel.
Oh, it's okay.
10,000. Maybe sort of a long short story.
There we go. Okay, 60,000 words.
All right.
So people use different like word count.
Yeah.
Now there's a whole set of free like web tools that you can use.
Okay.
There's websites where you can log on and it gives you the word count.
Really? Okay.
And at the library, what we like to do is in October, so last month, in order to get folks ready for NaNoWriMo, is that we host writing programs.
Oh.
And so we had 2 in November. Nope, October.
October.
The first one was on October 13th, and we had a local author, a Portland author named Maggie Stuckey.
Oh, sure.
Who, she's come down a few different times, and she's primarily a nonfiction writer, but she's also been writing for 40 years.
Yeah, she's done a lot.
She's done a lot. She understands a lot of how the publishing world is, how much it's changed, what it's like. So she gave participants in the workshop just kind of this like straightforward, like, this is what it's like to be a writer, like this is how, these are the hoops you have to jump through and things like that. And then on the 26th of October, we had Kendi Pearson.
Oh, sure.
Who is another local author, and we've had her do writing programs before. Yeah. And both Maggie and Kendi, we've had them, and we just got so much great feedback from folks that attended. Great. And Kendi kind of went more specifically into NaNoWriMo, and she had a syllabi really of, you know, and it just
sort of step by step.
Yeah, and it's covering a lot of basics, but you know, if you're someone that's always wanted to write a novel, but you know, you didn't take English classes in college, or
where do you start?
Yeah, like how do you
yeah.
And you know, there's kind of those technical aspects of writing.
Sure.
You know, when you're talking about like plot structure and character and world building, and so Kendi kind of broke it down and went and was giving folks questions to think of, like different things they can consider when they're writing their novel. You know, where do you get started? I think that whole process is just so, I mean, you're a writer, I'm not a writer, but the idea, I love the idea of, I've heard people say, you know, I didn't know what this character was going to do, and then they showed me. And I just, I love that idea that people's imaginations just work that way. And it's, you know, you almost, even though you're the person who's creating these characters and creating these stories, a lot of times you're at the whims of the muses, I guess.
Well, a couple of things. Tin House, I think they still do this, have a kind of a theme-driven contest, and I believe it was weekly in the period that they do it. And one of the themes was, I think it's 500 words on an author and his character or her character having a conversation. And that was a fun one because it does happen, I think, maybe with everybody, even the most hardcore plotters and planners, that their characters surprise them. And so that's a fun thing. And the other thing I was going to mention is I've thrown my hat in the ring at Terroir this year. And my proposal is to have a presentation of the novel as process. So if that comes about, then we'll talk about that.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's exactly. And I think going back to NaNoWriMo, like it's the idea of the process and breaking it down, because 60,000 words is overwhelming when you think about it. But then when you're breaking it down into word count, or breaking it down into how much you can get done in a certain time period. And then there's other ways to kind of mix it up. And last year we did a program that was a flash fiction program, which was fun because it was basically, we had a couple different prompts, and we gave people, we gave them the prompt, and then they had like very short amount of time to write, either as part of their novel or something separate, kind of however they wanted to. And
then are those shared at the end of that period?
Sometimes.
Do they read their work?
They had the opportunity to, but I find this with poets too. When I host the library's poetry nights, is they really like to be able to edit before they share. And which is why with the poetry nights, we have kind of these two different programs where it's like the more traditional, like open mic reading, so people can prepare pieces and bring them. But then we also do another type of program where we have people walk around the art gallery, and they have to pick a piece of art and write about it right then.
In the moment.
In the moment, and just having people step outside their comfort zone, have them have to kind of think, even if they're comfortable with writing, if they're comfortable with creating stories. Just having to skew that perspective a little bit, or just have them thinking in a different way.
I remember a writing teacher saying that, and I think this was younger, maybe middle school, I'm not sure, but on the first day of class, the first thing that she had the kids do was write down their most intimate secret. And don't show anybody, but write it down. And when everybody did, that she had them tear it up and throw it away. And the illustration was, when you write, it's your work, and it's up to you when somebody else sees it. So I see what you're saying about people wanting to edit. And that's the thing that I like about writing is we generally don't make something terrific first time out. When you write something down, for me anyway, now you've got something to change rather than conceive brand new. But it doesn't mean that that's ready. And in fact, with NaNoWriMo, I've heard people say, write your 60,000 words in a month and don't send it in. The idea. Take a look at it.
Like writing a novel in a month, but it's also understanding that this is the beginning. Like it's just it's a practice, And there are definitely definitely authors out there that have gone on to publish their NaNoWriMo work, but
Sure.
there's a bit of time in between that. And
Yeah.
or some people will put it away and don't look at it for years, and then they bring it back out and then decide maybe it's ready for publishing. But
Or maybe they've grown.
yeah.
And again, this is a starting point, but you don't want to just send it like that.
Oh, sure.
Courtney, I wanted to ask you, in these workshops with the two presenters,
Maggie or Kendi?
Maggie or Kendi, what was the audience like? So a couple things. Was it the same for both? Was it the same people for both? And like an age range or an enthusiasm level, or how did you evaluate the people who came?
There were a lot of familiar faces.
Okay.
But we also, I mean, we know we have. There's the writing group run by Caroline that meets at the library, and so we have this homegrown community of people who are
Okay.
interested in writing, and so a lot of it is just letting them know about these opportunities, and then kind of
And
others
that's
in the library.
Working draft writer? Is that?
Working draft writers, yep, they meet on the Monday. A Monday.
A
the
Monday?
third Monday.
Okay.
They meet on the third Monday. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It should
Okay.
be.
And I think that's open, isn't it, to most anybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's I haven't personally attended, but I've heard many, many, many good things about it because it's you can bring in your work or not. You could just go and listen to other
Sure.
people sharing their work, which I
Sure.
think is just as valuable of being able to just listen and watch somebody else, especially if it can give you confidence to
Well,
come in next time and
yeah.
share your work.
I have a friend who was shy and took his poetry in and was well received, and so that's really a confidence booster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's just, people who just enjoy, nobody's there to hurt your feelings or, it's a very neutral, safe space
Yeah.
for somebody who wants to explore.
Is it a critique group? In other words, do you get feedback, or is it just a platform to, like open mic, to read your work and thank you very much?
I believe it's a critique group.
It's more of a critique group.
I know you should honestly be interviewing Caroline about this.
Well, we'll get her.
But so the group that came, yep, we had I would say, 12 to 15 people.
Okay.
So it's still, I like that size of group. It's pretty intimate. It
Right.
makes people feel more comfortable asking questions.
Sure.
It makes it easier for conversations to happen. I would say that it's a lot of familiar faces. We did have, at one of the writing programs, we did have a younger person come, like with their parent.
Really?
Yeah, which was really cool to
Yeah.
see. It was the Maggie Stuckey, like how writers really work.
Okay.
And, we advertised it as kind of a like peek behind the curtain at what it's like. And so that was really cool to see.
And she's a good one to do that.
Yes.
She's been, I think, isn't she also a ghostwriter?
Yep, and an editor.
Yeah, she's just sort of done every aspect of it
Right.
and made a living, which is kind of unique.
Yes.
Yeah. You're talking about young people here, in, I guess, 3 or 4 months, 5 months, we're going to have paper gardens again.
Yeah.
And one of the great things about that is to see the young participation and then the quality of the work.
Oh, I know.
It's just wonderful.
Yes. Well, and especially with the poetry, because a lot of times the words can be so simple. It can be such a simple topic. It can be, but just the feeling behind it and the meaning behind it.
Sure.
And, it doesn't have to be Shakespearean prose. It could be a child's poem about a day at the park. And
Right.
being able to kind of get those reflections and those perspectives from kids is just, I think we lose that.
I asked Kim Stafford about how, I don't know that I use this word, but how obtuse is can you be in a poem, or watered down, but maybe the pre-digested, which would be the other way. And his take was that it should be challenging enough to keep you engaged, but it shouldn't be so obscure that, like what's the poet talking about?
Right.
Yeah. But then I think, and before we started to record, we were talking about Ted Kooser. And one of the things that I just love about his poetry is it's so accessible. And I say this every time, Barbara Drake, if everybody around here knows Barbara.
Yes.
It's particularly with her first book, Driving 100, the collection. I would read a poem and I'd think, oh yeah, I felt like that. And then you turn the page, oh yeah, I know what she's talking about.
Yes.
So it was really relatable for me.
Right, and poetry, I mean, I just picked up, I wish I could remember the author, I just picked up a poetry book off the new shelf at the library. And, you just kind of flip and you open up to one, and
Sure.
it's just, the connections that you can just instantly create.
Yeah.
And you don't know that person, you have no idea, but...
I think that's the magic of writing. We can, pick an era, arbitrarily, Mark Twain, who's not been with us for some time, but you can pick that up and still laugh,
Yes.
and have that connection. And isn't that powerful over the years, 100 years? How long has it been? To influence somebody, to make them feel something, to have an emotion over distance, over time, but we can still do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just read a great book. It's called I don't know the author's name though. That's librarian shame. But it's called The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek.
Okay.
And I loved it because it combined these two like real historical people. One of which was the under President Roosevelt, FDR's the New Deal after the Depression, the work progress. They sent out, they hired women, mostly single women, to be pack librarians. And these women there would be a central library center in one of the bigger towns, but basically it was a way for, and this was happening particularly in eastern Kentucky, so it's really rural, there's not, and so these librarians would take these pack horses loaded down with books, and they would have routes. And so every week they would go around. And so this book, it's about a woman who is a pack librarian. And then it also brings in Kentucky, there was a family, I think it was the Fulgate family in real life, but basically they had a genetic disorder that caused their skin to turn blue.
Oh my
so they were
gosh.
called like the Blue People of Kentucky. And so the book kind of combines this pack librarian, but then it also makes the main character a blue person. And
Okay. Now, is that book, fiction, but based on fact?
It's a historical fiction, and
Historical
then
fiction.
it's based on fact, but which is one of those things. Like I don't know if I would have. I mean, I would love to be. Oh my gosh, if I could be a horse librarian, I would love that so much. I can't even ride a horse. I'd still do it.
Well, it sounds like the first bookmobile.
Yes, exactly. And
We come to you.
yes. And just kind of these, and a lot of times it was these rural communities that didn't have a lot of contact with the outside world.
Sure.
So in the book, it kind of describes having different material and having to, there was a character who's pregnant, so the librarian made sure to get like government documents on pregnancy, and it was almost,
Oh my gosh.
it was like, I mean, honestly, how libraries used to be, where it was the librarian was the one providing a lot of the reference and the information.
Right.
But the book was very good. Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek. I actually listened to it, which was delightful.
Oh, I like that.
I like accents.
Yeah.
Yep. But it was, I forget how I started talking about that, but.
Well, her route, I wonder how often she made that route. Was it weekly? Was it monthly?
It was, I think in the book, she had like every week was a different group of people.
A different route.
And then like there was one day a month where she would go to Frankfort, Kentucky to go to like the main center. And that's where she would switch up new things, get new things.
And that's kind of what I was getting at is if you've got these in the saddlebag, I mean, how many books can you carry?
Right.
Not a lot.
No. Well, and we have an outreach program at the library.
Yeah.
We have 2 wonderful volunteers that drive cars, but
Really? Well, just talk about that a minute.
yeah, our outreach program, so it's for homebound folks.
Okay,
so
I didn't know that.
Yeah, oh, it's a wonderful program.
Yeah.
And it's basically anyone who, for mobility issues or or illness or really any reason, they're unable to make it to the library, they can sign up with our outreach account and have books delivered to them on and depending, it's so much of it is based on the person's need.
Okay.
So the book deliveries come as often as you need them to. Our librarian, Diane McMillan, is in charge of that program.
Okay.
So and then we have a volunteer that helps select the books, and then we have 2 volunteers that will go and deliver the books. And they have routes, it covers different parts. We go to folks in some of the care homes, but other folks just who are living on their own.
Sure.
And yeah,
And how did they contact you? Phone, I guess?
Yep, they can call the library and ask for Diane, or they can call the library and just ask about the outreach program, and then we'll get them in touch with Diane.
Right.
But yeah, and it's a free service that we provide. It's just the idea of even if you can't come to the library, we still want you to be able to access library resources.
Yeah, that's terrific. I was going to, and I will ask you about the gallery at Ten Oaks and so on.
Sure.
But before we get there, I know, so you're the reference supervisor.
Yes.
Kind of describe that, and then would there be a representative experience that you've had that was kind of thrilling for you as well as fulfilling to the person that you're helping?
Oh.
Well, first to explain your position.
I am the reference supervisor, so I'm the head of the upstairs information department. So we have a staff of 4 or 5 librarians, and we're the folks upstairs where if you have a tech question, if you need to get on the computer, if you're looking for something. So we're an information desk.
Okay.
And so a lot of what I do is kind of coordinating that staff, those kind of resources.
But that's in the library. I
That's
mean,
in the
so
library.
you're sort of directing and guiding people.
Just the upstairs.
But I would what I thought, and maybe you do this as well. Somebody comes to you and says, "I'm researching, Southern California in the late 1800s, or whatever it is," and do you know enough about where to send them, or you can help them find that?
Yes. I love those questions.
Okay.
And we help with, you can come to us with this. A lot of things that I personally love helping with is family history questions. So we'll have
genealogy?
a lot of genealogy, local. I really like doing searches. So we'll have folks who come in, they'll need an obituary. They're doing their own family history and they need an obituary. And the library has all the news registers on microfilm going back to when it was like the telephone register
I
in like
didn't know that.
1888. Oh yeah, on a microfilm machine.
I gotta stop by and see this.
I know. Although, and so people can search that way. We also have access to Ancestry.com, which is very expensive, but you can use it for free inside the library.
Oh my gosh.
And so, and it's just a lot of fun. I help a lot of people if there's just looking for obituaries. Military history. I had somebody recently who was looking up a relative of theirs.
But these would be local.
Some of them are local, but they don't have to be.
Really?
I mean, that's the thing. Like even if we don't know where to find the answer, we have resources that help us tell you where to find the answer.
Okay. So I'm thinking like Ellis Island.
Yeah.
Somebody comes over and obviously that's not local.
Yeah, we got that.
Okay,
We can get that.
Okay, that's great.
I would love that. So yes, everyone, bring your Ellis Island questions to
Yeah.
me, and that's what it's just so fun to me. It's looking at the names and seeing how families have moved. I volunteer with the oh my gosh, I volunteer with the Historical Society, and I found a book when I was inventorying part of the collection that was a listing of everyone that had ever been buried in the Salem Asylum Cemetery.
Oh my gosh.
Not everyone who'd ever been buried. It's between like 1880 and 1913.
Sure.
But it's like a listing of people who were buried in the asylum cemetery. Yeah, see, this is what I get excited about.
Is that so? We're kind of spoiled now because when things are digital, they're so easy to search.
Yeah.
Is that?
Not always.
Okay.
'Cause
So you're looking.
Yeah. Well, and that's what, before we had Ancestry, before we had a lot of, and that's what a lot of the materials that I see it's somebody who was like, well, we were looking up a relative who was married in Grant County. So they went and they printed out a census of the marriages in Grant County, and now we have this booklet at the Yamhill County Historical Society.
Okay.
That was one of the boxes. It was just like cemetery records, like where the cemeteries are located.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
For like every county. Cemeteries, I don't know. It's just the historic, like there's so many stories that can be found.
But what a synergy between your job and your volunteering.
Yeah.
Because it's really
I know.
kind of
Also,
the
it's a
same.
lot of like inventorying. It's kind of the like
Okay.
punching in the data, which it's refreshing for me.
Oh, good.
But yeah, and so we have access to those archives
Okay.
at the Yamhill County Historical. We have a few things here in the library.
Mm-hmm.
We get a lot of questions about the city, like I grew up in this house on this street, but now it's named a different thing, and how can we find out where the original street address was, and things like that. And yeah, we have the materials and tools to
Oh, that's great.
look that up.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Oh, yeah. It's. I think if I had the time, I mean, I think that would be an avocation for me because it's just fun to do.
Yes.
We're almost out of time.
Oh, goodness.
Is there any? Oh, good. Is there anything going on that you want people to know about?
We're always having poetry night on the
Okay.
first Thursday of the month in December. I think it's December 5th.
Okay.
We're actually having kind of a special one. We have a visual artist who paired up with a writer and a poet, and they put out a book that's kind of a mix of this visual art and poetry. And this is the third time that they've kind of done one of these series for us.
So there'll be the featured poet. Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then after that, it's open mic, or how
Yes.
does that work? Okay.
Yes, and we take all comers. We've had some new people at open mic, which is
Good.
always so exciting.
Yeah.
Plus all the old favorites.
Yeah. I've been there and it was fun. And
Good.
I was thinking that, not 50%, but I'll bet a lot of those people have been on the show and we got to talk to them.
Yes, you see a lot of familiar faces.
Sure. Okay. I think we're about done unless you got something else. How about what's which should be obvious, but the web address for the library?
So you can use maclibrary.org, which will take you to the library site, but then it's also mcminnvilleoregon.gov/library will get you there.
Oh boy.
I know, maclibrary.org is easier. We kept that one.
Okay.
It's way easier to access.
Good. Okay, well, folks, visit the library. Heck, what a treasure. And if you're seeing this in some other location, visit your library, but we've got a great one. So I'm Stephen W. Long. This is The Writing Life, and thank you so much. Contact me if you'd like, stephenwlong.com, or I'll see you at the library. All right. Thank you.
What do you think? We done?
I don't know, you guys wanna do one just with yourself without me doing the
As long as they think we're
podcast?
done, if
No,
they got
no.
enough, they got enough.
They got enough? Probably, okay. Okay, sounds good.
Let's go lunch.
Oh.
I'm hungry.
Yeah, I can just bite too.